Homecoming week for Georgia Southern football against the Georgia State Panthers.
Where do we start with that one?
The fact that it's homecoming week, I think. But you look at a Georgia State team coming off 2 victories in their last 2 games. Got the victory over Texas State this past weekend up in Atlanta, 28-16, and then beat ULM at Monroe, 55-21 2 weeks ago. And that's a ULM team that's rolling a little bit. How about that?
They're 4-3.
Good.
ULM's 4-3.
We'll get to them a little bit more when we kind of recap what the Sun Belt Conference looks like.
Good for them, though.
Yeah,
wow.
no doubt. And good for Nick White, Mike Hammett, 2 of the best people. I also saw that Coach Bowden dressed up in gold chains and...
Look, he's got them playing the way that they are.
Yeah, he can dress however he wants to. I don't care.
It's
all about it.
You can find that one on social media.
Yeah.
It's a treat.
But Georgia State comes in 3-4, 2-1 in Sun Belt Conference play, and we've talked about it for whenever we're previewing, looking at Georgia State. Their quarterback situation confuses the heck out of me. Darren Granger has come in, the redshirt junior, transferred in from Furman a couple of years ago. At one point was a SoCon all-freshman team. He's come in, and this year thrown for over 700 yards, almost 800 yards, 11 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. Quad Brown has not been the Quad Brown that we saw a year ago. He was the starter at the beginning of the season. Quad Brown was.
First 2 games, yeah.
Obviously. Came in, did what he did last year, over 2,700 career passing yards. He is going to be the starter. How about it?
And we mentioned that. We said, look, for all the quarterback that get mentioned, the Grayson McCalls, the Chase Bryces, all this, the Levi Lewises, Quad Brown's...
Oh, yeah. He was in that discussion. No doubt about it.
He wasn't even getting his due, but the fact that we saw what he did against Georgia Southern, throwing for 372, he led them to the comeback in the fourth quarter, and we thought, okay, if there is a reason why Georgia State is better this year, it's because of Quad Brown, but it hasn't turned out to work like that.
And so you can call it the quote-unquote sophomore slump in his second real season of running that offense for Georgia State, but Darren Granger has taken over. You still are going to see Quad Brown in spurts at times, which... And this is going to sound awful. Why? I'm not really sure.
And even Sean Elliott has come out and said that he does not want a 2-quarterback system. He's had to a couple of times just because of what Quad Brown has done and how Darren Granger has emerged.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be mostly Granger, but that's the thing. Mostly is not entirely.
Right.
For somebody like Quad, who did what he did last year, regardless of whether 3 says he's going to take all the snaps, you've got to be ready at some point that Quad Brown might be available for this game. And that's weird to think about, but just because of what he's done in the past against the Eagles, you have to be ready for both of them.
And this is the 3rd or 4th time that Georgia Southern has seen the quote-unquote backup quarterback is the starter from a year ago that has 2,000-plus passing yards. And I don't know how many times Georgia Southern has had to prepare for the backup quarterback, not as a backup quarterback, but as a legitimate option for their opponent.
FAU, Troy, South.
Arkansas State. Lane Hatcher is now kind of the guy since James Blackman's been hampered with injury.
Now, granted, a year ago, Georgia Southern did play against a team's backup quarterback 3 times. So maybe it works in the other direction. Last year, you're thinking it's only going to be the starter. Oh, they have another quarterback, so we got to get ready for him. Now you've almost got to condition yourself to say, well, they've got this one, but it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation where you've got to know about both of them.
Their quarterback situation just boggles my mind.
Build-wise, very similar. I think Quad Brown's got a couple of pounds on Granger, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But watching Granger a couple of games, I think he's pretty solid.
No doubt.
And he's a better running threat than Quad Brown is. He ran for over 100 yards against Texas State last Saturday. He has started their last 5. And you've got to remember the history here because Georgia State hosted Furman at the beginning of 2019. Granger tore Georgia State up while he was a Paladin.
4 touchdowns. He was the Stats FCS National Freshman of the Week.
They were up 3 scores in that game. Georgia State came back to win, but don't think that didn't factor into him. Hey, why don't you come on so we can have you on our team? We don't have to worry about you anymore.
It's kind of the Braves and Adam Duvall type deal. We don't want to see you hitting those bombs as a Marlin. Come on back.
By the way, congratulations to you and all the Braves fans. I know we'll get to that too, but congratulations.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Very. Calm down.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
Yeah, we're okay.
Just enjoy it.
We're not supposed to be here.
61 and 101 over here, and you enjoy it. Enjoy it, all right.
True. All right. But in addition to Granger and Quad Brown, a lot of weapons for this Georgia State offense. You look at the running back room, 4 different guys have the ability to touch the ball.
Yeah.
And Destin Coates is the guy that, again, coming into the season, you thought he was going to kind of be the runaway, but Tucker Gregg has kind of emerged as, quote-unquote, the go-to guy. Between that and Jamias Williams, who has 4 rushing touchdowns on the season to lead the team, it's kind of a Georgia Southern situation where you throw any of the 3 or 4 of them, you throw Marcus Carroll into that, you're not necessarily losing a whole lot depending on who's in the game.
Coming into the season, this was designed to be Destin Coates' offense with Gregg sprinkled in, with Williams sprinkled in,
Right.
and then Carroll just here and there. But because Coates had ball security issues 2 of the first 3 games, he had a 64-yard run against Charlotte, which should have gone for a touchdown, fumbled inside the 10.
Whoops.
He really hasn't been seen since. He's carried it, I think it's been 22 times in the last 5 games, so he has been benched. He's not hurt. This is a benching. And ever since Tucker Gregg has become the guy, he's been phenomenal. Former walk-on, Chatsworth, Murray County, some place where Billy Napier is from. He ran for 150 against Auburn, showed more speed than people were expecting, and he carries the ball like every carry is his last, like he's trying to earn that position every time because he's got Jamias Williams, who's nipping at his heels, and he had 2 touchdowns against Texas State, and who knows, they might be able to use Marcus Carroll a little bit more, but you've got to have so much respect for Tucker Gregg, somebody that walked on, according to Sean Elliott, basically sold himself to be able to get on this team, and he's been on the roster for 4 years. We've seen his name on our 2 deeps, but it's been somebody that's just been the junk time guy, the carry here and there guy, not the somebody that's a 15 to 20 touch guy, and that's what he's become. He's the bell cow now.
Yeah, I really like Tucker Gregg. Being able to watch a little bit of film earlier on today, I really like him because, like you said, we've seen his name. You just haven't necessarily seen him on the field. He may have a couple of carries every game, but it's not. It's more to spell whoever the main guy is. It's not you're putting him in to do damage.
That Texas State game swung because of him, because it was 14-13 at the half, early third quarter. Georgia State had a 4th and 1. Gregg was stopped about 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Nobody could wrap him up because he's just got one of those, he's not nearly as big as Logan Wright, but one of those frames where you just don't know what you're going to grab when you try to tackle him. Not only did he get out of the pile, throw a vicious stiff arm to pick up 14. 3 plays later, Georgia State was in the end zone, and they were never seriously threatened after that. Now, that was early in the third quarter, but that's a microcosm of what he has meant to that running back room for a team that's 10th in the country in rushing, and that's with Destin Coates not being a factor for more than a month. That's wild to me.
You've got a lot of guys, wide receiver-wise. Sam Pinckney's back. Cornelius McCoy is back. You've got Terrence Dixon. So many different guys that you can throw the ball to, but somebody that I've liked for a while now, Roger Carter at tight end.
And he loves him some Georgia Southern.
Yeah. Well,
not great for Georgia Southern, but he loves him some Georgia Southern.
But he is what I love in a tight end because he can both block and he can be that wide receiver type tight end.
Yeah.
I really like Roger Carter, and obviously Georgia Southern has seen what he can do. But he is somebody that, I don't know, there's a couple people around the league, and I don't like that it's a Georgia State guy, but there's a couple of people around the league. We talk about Carlton Marshall a lot with Troy, Levi Lewis with Louisiana. There's a couple of people around the league. You're just like, I don't like that guy.
And this is the 5th straight year that he's been a starter. Because of the COVID year, he got the chance to come back.
I've seen his name enough.
He scored his first career touchdown against Georgia Southern in Statesboro 4 years ago. That was part of the comeback when they were down 17-7, ended up winning at 21-17. Penny Hart had the late touchdown in the season that we'd all like to forget. But he has been there because he just keeps getting better. Now, he changed his number, so you might not recognize him. He's not an Isaiah Likely. Granted, there's not very many people in the country that are. I don't think he's that far off because he can block like a fullback, but he has got the strength and speed of somebody that you wouldn't expect, the way he can work the edges. And thinking back to all those previous Georgia Southern, Georgia State games, where have the Eagles really been hurt on defense? The middle of the field.
Yeah.
And it's been the tight end that has just destroyed Georgia Southern's pass defense.
And the thing that I think makes him so dynamic, you talk about the speed that he has and the strength that he has, but a lot of times you're having to cover him with a linebacker, and there's not a whole lot of linebackers that are going to be able to match up one-on-one with him.
I don't know if there's one in the league that can.
Marshall, maybe, but even then, he's given up a lot of strength.
I mean, Marshall's only 5'9", Roger Carter's 6'2".
Yeah.
So you're giving away 5 inches right off the get.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's not... If there is a linebacker in the league, there's not many of them.
And you don't want to forget Aubrey Payne, who had 2 touchdowns against ULM. He scored last week against Texas State. He likes to talk a little bit. He had one of their 3 unsportsmanlike penalties last week, but he has been very outspoken about his role in this team. You got to remember, he came in to this program with Brad Glenn, the OC. They both came from Western Carolina, and we know how much Glenn, his systems are geared towards quarterbacks. Dan Ellington, Quad Brown, now Darren Granger. But for Payne, you got the feeling that he is always going to be involved somehow because of the comfort level that those two have with each other.
Yeah, no doubt. Flip it over to the defensive side for Georgia State. And this line is really good. And a lot like Georgia Southern, you've got 6, 7, 8 deep that this line can go and constantly changing in whenever you've got substitution options. And so you've got a lot of guys, again, that you've seen year after year. Dante Wilson, Hardrick Willis, Trey Moore. Mm-hmm. So many guys that you've seen time after time again, and you go 6, 7, 8 deep with them. And
I'm not so sure my favorite guy on that D-line isn't Thomas Gore, the third-string D tackle.
Oh, no doubt.
Because he plays a lot for being the number 3 D tackle. It seems whenever he is in the game, he is on the other side of the line of scrimmage.
Yes, very much so.
Now, Wilson and Willis are 2 all-conference guys. They're going to get the marquee. But Thomas Gore is somebody that you can easily forget about with his size. It's strange to say it that way, but whenever he is in, if you don't account for him, he's going to hurt you.
No, and he's somebody 6 foot, 270, but just a redshirt sophomore, and so you kind of feel naturally he's going to be the guy that takes over for Wilson, who's a senior, for Willis, who's a redshirt senior. He's going to be the guy that fills that void in a year or two whenever those guys are gone.
It's a very good front, and for them consistently, if you want one unit that has consistently performed well since Nate Fuqua took over as D coordinator, it's that D-line. Now, they've had their spurts in the secondary and at linebacker, but that D-line has been so solid for about 4 years now.
Really similar story as far as linebackers and secondary goes. You've got the same kind of cast of characters. Blake Carroll at inside linebacker up the middle for Georgia State. So many different guys. Quavian White in that cornerback role. Somebody that had 6 interceptions a year ago, hasn't picked one off yet, but really showed you what he can do.
That's the one we've got to be wary of on Saturday because Quavian White was injured in the second quarter against Texas State, and he didn't come back. But his backup, Jalen Jones, had the interception in the fourth quarter that helped seal the game. You had a miscommunication between Brady McBride and Marcel Barbie. There was also some sun. I think that there was some contention that the sun getting in Barbie's eyes. Did he run the wrong route? Well, either way, he ran in. The ball went to the sideline. Jalen Jones came up with the interception. If White does not start, he's also their punt and kick returner, even though they don't do very much of that. If he does not start, Jones would slide over across from Bryquise Brown.
Yeah, and that's something that we've got to touch on. And we talked about it a little bit last year, but it seems like it's more prevalent this year that they don't return.
As almost by design, because Sean Elliott is an analytics guy.
It's almost like what's the head coach that went to Presbyterian that doesn't
Kevin
kick?
Kelly.
Yeah, he doesn't kick. They do the opposite of it. So I would love to see a game between Presbyterian and Georgia State. Lord, there would be no special teams in that one.
I think that would be really, really bad for Presbyterian.
Yes, but
unfortunately, it just would be.
Just for a story, that sounds fantastic.
They fair catch everything. If it's over their head, they don't even try to touch it. They're dead last in the country in kickoff return yards because in their minds, they don't want to have to worry about returning a kickoff and they can just take it at the 25 because the analytics have told Sean Elliott, if we consistently start drives at the 25, we don't have to worry about starting one at the 13. So if they could feel like they can get it every time at the 25, but then somebody else would say, well, let's ground kick it and make them run it back. But if you're not ready for it, then that can cause other issues. But I will be interested to see how Britton Williams handles his kickoffs.
Yeah, and we've seen Britton, and Terry's talked about it a lot, of trying to get it in the corner where goal line meets sideline. You've seen a couple of them go out of bounds, but the last couple of weeks have been pretty good of trying to land it right there at that goal line, the 2-yard line, somewhere in that vicinity. I say make them run it out, but with the fair catch rule that got put in place a couple of years ago, you don't have to run anything out anymore.
If you can make a word situation, though, and make the returner think about catching the ball instead of thinking about making the fair catch, you don't make the fair catch signal, you got to run it out.
Yeah.
Keep it in the field of play, do something different, he'll realize, oh, I didn't do it. They only have, I think, 11 kickoff return yards all year. So if you have to do something that they don't want to do, maybe you can steal a possession like we've been hearing Terry say a lot the last few weeks. And in Georgia Southern's case, when you're 2-5, you do need to steal some possessions.
It'll be a 6 o'clock kickoff to cap off homecoming week. A lot of festivities throughout the week around campus, but it'll culminate with a 6 o'clock kickoff between Georgia Southern and Georgia State. We'll be on the air with the Cutwater Tailgate Show starting at 4 o'clock. Got a couple of guests coming on. Going to have Spence Mullis from Morris Bank on. They're the presenting sponsor of the Georgia State game. With it being a blue out, bleed blue, bank blue, kind of makes sense.
Of course, yes. Absolutely. Could be a pullover weather.
Oh, yeah.
Get
I love me some pullovers.
I would like me some pullovers, too.